forecast.
Our first look at the forecast. For that, let's check in with weather specialist Noor Rafat. Hey, Noor.
Hey, thanks very much, Catherine. Well, we got a nice little break from the falling snow yesterday. I hope you weren't expecting it to last all weekend, though, because clearly it's not. But the good news is, if you're feeling singled out by this weather system, we're not alone in this. We've got a lot of snow pushing all the way up to the north of the province, pushing east as well the past few hours. If you have noticed, though, if you've been outside today, it doesn't feel like that brutal cold that we were seeing earlier in the week. If you remember, Monday, Tuesday, with those wind chills, it felt closer to -15 to -18 at times. Well, now we've got winds predominantly from the south, and that has helped push in some milder air the past couple of hours. And in Toronto, +1 is how it feels like, too, when you factor in the wind chill. Mild as well in Peterborough, and we apologize for these disappearing digits. It's -3 in Bancroft, -4 in Ottawa, feeling closer to -6 with the wind chill. Now, if you remember yesterday, we were talking about the wind direction and the role that that plays in lake effect snow and snow squalls. And coming up on Monday, we're going to see those winds shift from the west, which means the snow squalls that we're going to see will start to be around the eastern shores of Georgian Bay and Lake Huron. And here are those snow squall watches in place for really much of Bruce County, into Bracebridge and Gravenhurst as well. Here is that wind pretty strong from the west by tomorrow, and here are these snow squalls moving in also towards the eastern shores of these areas, as I mentioned, thanks to that wind from the west. This is going to take its time before moving out, but by Tuesday, another shift in wind direction will send the snow south towards other parts of southwestern Ontario and into Toronto as well. For now, let's focus on the next 12 or so hours. We've got some snow later this evening. Could see it on and off in the overnight. Pretty windy in Toronto, and by tomorrow, gusting winds up to 55 kilometers per hour, periods of snow in the afternoon. Your high at -1 in the afternoon. Kat?
Thanks, Noor. Time now to check in on the long-range weather forecast, and weather specialist Noor Rafat joins me here at the desk. And Noor, it doesn't quite feel so bitterly cold heading outside these days.
Yeah, certainly a welcome change by many, Catherine. I'm not exactly saying it's going to be shorts and t-shirts in the next few days.
Fair
but
enough.
Milder conditions expected for large parts of central Canada and the east. The problem is, though, Catherine, what comes up must come down. Well, we're still looking at temperatures near the seasonal range tomorrow in Toronto. Your high is +1 early in the morning, but we're looking at -1 by the afternoon. A lot of wind gusting up to 55 kilometers per hour. Starting to get cooler as we head into the evening hours, with a chance to see some snow in the afternoon. If you're wondering where the Arctic air is, well, it's gripping Saskatchewan and Manitoba in a brutal way. Temperatures over there tumbling 20 degrees in 24 hours. And you can see the stark divide between that province and into Alberta, where they're sitting at the freezing mark in areas like Calgary. Relief, though, for areas over here as we see temperatures closer to seasonal in Quebec after some frigid cold earlier in the week. Similar story in the Maritimes. We'll get another push of that Arctic air very soon. Watch what happens over here. It's starting to shift further east around the Great Lakes, and that's what will bring some of that cold air into the southern Ontario and eastern Ontario regions by at least Tuesday. So looking ahead to tomorrow still, we're expecting that snow through this evening, lingering into your Monday around the Peterborough and Kawarthas, into Kingston as well. Could see dry breaks in southwestern Ontario, also in the GTHA in the afternoon. And then watch what happens Tuesday. Those snow squalls that are really going in areas like Muskoka, Owen Sound will start to move in now to areas like Waterloo, into London, Ontario, potentially into Toronto as well by the evening, thanks to some shifting winds now from the north. And it's that north flow that will bring the Arctic air. Colder conditions expected on Tuesday. We're going to see brighter days ahead, though, as early as Wednesday, when the skies, when those clouds start to part and we see some sunny skies for many communities. Of course, totals variable, but some of the heaviest around those regions that are seeing snow squall watches, potentially 20 centimeters expected by Tuesday, and could see a little bit more into parts of southwestern Ontario as the days progress, thanks to those shifting winds. +1 in Peterborough tomorrow, -1 in Muskoka. Mishawaka, -1 in Barrie, and Stratford at -3. It's -6 on Tuesday. Here's that Arctic air. Doesn't last very long in Toronto. Closer to seasonal by Wednesday. +1 on Friday. Saturday, +3 and cloudy. And just like that, the shift begins. It's Sunday onwards that we're going to see some brutal Arctic air grip Toronto, large parts of Ontario actually. Daytime highs into the minus double digits, and at times or overnights could feel closer to -30.
And a heads up for drivers, a long-term closure is coming to the DVP. A northbound lane on the highway will be closed from the Eastern Avenue on-ramp to Queen Street East. The lane closure is part of a long-term rehabilitation project for 4 bridges in the area and will last until the spring. A safety warning tonight from York Regional Police. The Marine Unit is urging the public to be extremely cautious around frozen bodies of water, including Lake Simcoe. Police say ice thickness is highly inconsistent after recent freezing temperatures. This warning comes after a man in his 70s died Friday morning falling through the ice near Toronto's Centre Island. If you plan to venture out, police recommend having a safety plan and wearing protective gear like a winter floater suit. Time now for our first look at the forecast. For that, let's check in with weather specialist Noor Rafat. Hey, Noor.
Hey, thanks very much, Catherine. Well, another weekend done and dusted, and for the Toronto region, that meant a whole range of conditions. We got a break from the snow earlier yesterday, but we know that break came to an end as we rolled into your day today. Starting to see some fog also appearing on the Toronto skyline. A very mild 0 degrees right now with some snow. And we've been seeing quite the snow activity through the afternoon, on and off, as I mentioned. If you feel singled out by the system in the GTHA, we're not alone. It's affecting large parts of the province all the way up to the north and has been pushing east the past few hours. We're also seeing some conditions that don't make it feel a lot like winter. If you noticed, it's a bit more bearable when you head on outside. You don't need that much of a thick jacket thanks to some strong winds straight from the south. That has brought a lot of mild air through the province, and you can see temperatures in terms of our highs very mild, even into Peterborough, Kingston, all the way up in Tobermory, +1 when we should be at around -3, +1 in Chatham, Toronto, other regions as well. We were talking yesterday, if you remember, about wind direction and how important of a role that plays into where we could see lake effect snowfall. And now we're seeing snow squall watches in place for much of Bruce County, areas like Gravenhurst into Bracebridge as well. As winds start going strong from the west, we're going to see that snowfall now into the east. So communities on the eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. So here it is, strong tomorrow, these winds from the west, and here are those snow squalls. You can see them very clearly pushing through into the eastern sections where we just mentioned, and that will be a trend that could continue through much of Monday. Expecting dry conditions for much of the Toronto region, although don't be surprised if we see some flurries as well heading into the afternoon. It's going to be a windy day, though, gusting winds up to 55 kilometers per hour, -1 by the afternoon. Kat?
Thanks, Noor. Prime Minister. Time now to check in on the long-range weather forecast, and weather specialist Noor Rafat joins me here at the desk. And Noor, things seem a little bit more tolerable outside, fair to say?
Yes, definitely fair to say, Kat, and I think that's a welcome change for many in central Canada and the east after seeing such frigid conditions for some earlier in the week. So Monday, Tuesday, that Arctic air gripping Canada. Not the case right now, but we do know that we have another round in store in the coming days. Let's take a look. Well, tomorrow, not seeing a major difference when it comes to those temperatures in Toronto. You're high around the seasonal range, -1 in the afternoon. It is actually going to be +1 earlier in the day, but getting colder. We've got some strong winds gusting up to 55 kilometers per hour, and that could be uncomfortable at times. So make sure you hold on to your hats. Welcome change, as I mentioned, around large parts of central Canada, parts of the Great Lakes seeing these milder conditions, and things are actually seasonal in southern Quebec, much of Atlantic Canada as well. If you're wondering where the Arctic air is, Well, it's gripping the prairies quite strong, and in areas like Saskatchewan, we saw those temperatures plummet more than 20 degrees in the span of 24 hours. So some dangerously cold conditions heading into the next few hours as well. Watch what happens tomorrow. More of this Arctic air shifting east, and with that, eventually, Ontario, Quebec, Maritimes will get a taste of that cold air in this week, but that won't be the end of the story, and we'll talk more in just a moment. For now, it's going to be a wintry scene regardless with this snow. It's going to keep on going through cottage country overnight into tomorrow morning and in the afternoon, also along eastern Ontario. Toronto, the GTHA will be mostly dry. We could even see some sunny breaks, but we could expect some flurries in the afternoon, as I mentioned. Watch what happens Tuesday now. A shift of wind direction, those winds coming straight from the north will bring that snow down south in areas like Waterloo, London, Ontario, potentially into the GTHA as well. And we are expecting those northerly winds to bring the cold air with them as well. So a colder day on Tuesday. Better days ahead as early as Wednesday, though, when we start to see some of that snow dissipate and some sunnier breaks for many across large parts of the province. Now, depending on where you're situated, totals are variable, but the heaviest around those regions that we saw the snow squall watches in place for, so 20 centimeters or so, possibly by the time Wednesday rolls around. And prepare to see some shifting temperatures as well in the coming days. So +2 in Toronto tomorrow, as I mentioned, -5 by Tuesday with that Arctic air. Doesn't last very long. We're closer to seasonal Thursday with some flurries, +1 on Friday, 3 on Saturday with some messy weather. And Sunday is where the worrying trend starts. Sunday onwards, that's where we're going to see that Arctic air grip large parts of the country. And into the following week, we're going to see daytime highs feeling closer to the -20s when you factor in the wind chill. So probably some of the coldest air this season.